And we are live. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Or potentially afternoon if you are watching this at a later date or time. My name is Tiffany Hill Cook, and I run a spiritual practice called the Healing Hill. And on Sundays, we go live and we talk to individuals who have, let's say, identified a need for soul expression within the field of spirituality, or just have a really cool fucking story. And so today we're going to be meeting with me, Tran. I met me, I don't know, a few months ago, maybe through one of my dear friends, a mutual friend of ours. And we've had, a couple of meals together. And since I started putting together these lives on Sunday, I just thought that he would be a really awesome guest to have and so needed in this time. And so if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for folks.
You speak the truth when it comes in this time. My name is Tran. I'm Vietnamese, originally born in Vietnam, came over after the Vietnam War. Grew up in Southern Washington, and grew up born and raised Catholic through my upbringing. Was even confirmed in that, and that is quite a journey in itself. And I've been through a lot of different spiritual practices. And as it turns out, ultimately, it was for laying the path for what I'm doing now. Absolutely. We might get into it. We'll see.
I love that.
So, but I enjoy these conversations. I've been enjoying this work, and it's a very beautiful journey. So motivated to do it. So.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many, what I love, specifically when you and I get together, what is unique about anybody else that I've ever met is your guides talk to you like my guides talk to me. So when you and I are having a conversation, it's really like, four other people having a conversation, because I mean, I can't hear your guides, but there's a lot of validation and conversation that's going on inside of us. And then you and I are actually verbally talking to one another.
Yeah.
So I'm just really excited, and I'm going to have Spirit slow down a little bit because they're excited we're meeting too. I want to hear, what was it like? I didn't know that you grew up in Vietnam. I remember my uncle, just a story that he shared, and he's like a red-haired, freckled man, and a story that he shared. He was in the Vietnam War, was just walking through these villages and them just coming up and touching him. They'd never seen someone that looked like him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then also with a Catholic upbringing, those are a couple of I'd say deep imprints, being an immigrant, war, religion, and then ultimately being a vessel of light. And so tell me about, normally there's some point in life that just doesn't work for you. That's what I've noticed in meeting with individuals that have some sort of spirituality, connection with spirit. What, how does your childhood and that religious upbringing connect with your life today?
Well, I think the Catholic tradition, even though I grew up in that and I went to church every Sunday, there was an underlying aspect of it during when I was going through the confirmation processes. There was something underlying about it that didn't ring true to me. Mm-hmm. I definitely had a belief in God for sure. But my relationship with God, there was an underlying current that said that it was really about my relationship with God, mm-hmm. and not what was said in necessarily during the lectures and things of that, and the sermons. So I was literally when I was a teenager, going through rough times. I was the kid at 11 o'clock at night going into the church and in pure darkness, just praying to God. So I had a good teacher. And I want to convey that I'm not trying to slam any kind of tradition or anything. It's just, this is just my experience of it. Mm-hmm. That person who through that time said, listen to what your heart says about your relationship with God. Mm-hmm. It's not what you necessarily are. It's really just talking to God and things of that nature. So I think that was a foundational aspect of the Catholic belief for me. And it turns out that has been underlying up to what is now, because I forgot that aspect of it as I became an adult. I forgot that the search is within myself, and it took me literally since I was 18 to realize that, up to when I had my awakening, probably about 4 years ago. So searching, for teachers and people that with integrity and honesty. I mean, all the attributes and all that stuff. And I think I forgot that, hey, all that was within me the whole time. So it's part of the learning journey, of course. But yeah, like that.
When I first started connecting, when I say I first started connecting with God, it was more like he was knocking on my door, and the soul of God was unavoidable. But one of the first layers of recalling was, I am God and God is me. And
Mm.
I can feel into that energy that I felt at the time, because it was the most love that I had felt in so long. I hated myself so deeply. And I started, and then realizing the universe resides within me, and externally and internally. That was 2020. You said 4 years ago you went through an awakening. Do you mind going into that and sharing with folks what that experience was like for you?
I'm sure you have to excuse if I start tearing up, but because
Please.
it so
Yeah.
um well, as a lot of times you hear about the awakening process where you're pretty much faced with all this stuff hitting the fan, and you're just like, this is not working.
Yeah.
And around that time I was going through divorce. I lost my peers. I've been doing martial arts since I was 18. I went down south, and I had a peer group of people that I knew and loved for 20 plus years. Also, backstory with that is that my martial arts instructor got me into an indigenous tradition after I left the Catholic belief system. And so this is a man and his family, of course, and all the students uh, lost connection with them because I sort of got blacklisted. So here's the wall, right?
Wow.
And right around the time I was going through all of that, I was trying to resolve some of these conflicts, and I was in a seer. The official awakening, I will say, was I was in a meditation with a seer who, when she goes in sessions with me, um, she closes her eyes. And so I'm in meditation, we're in it, and all of a sudden I feel like somebody had cut off the top of my skull, all this energy, and someone had just opened up the top of my head. All this energy came down. It was amazing. And she said, stay in it. I can see all this light coming down on your crown. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. And she said that at that point it was actually a crown Kundalini awakening. Even though a lot of times people speak of Kundalini awakenings, that stuff
Yeah.
is good to go up.
Mm.
And what I read in text about that was that depending on where you left off in your previous lives,
Okay.
in the awakening process, if you get to that point again in the current incarnation, that's where it opens up. It's not something you hear traditionally, but for me, I had a crown awakening, so it was wonderful.
Well, that brings me. So I had a full Kundalini moment as well. Mine was root, and I had some healing sessions with the angels. And this, I had a lifetime 14 ago that I was cut up into many pieces in this lifetime. I know it's kind of gruesome for folks, and so this was the most integrated body that I've had in years. That, like, the most connected. Um, so for okay, when I started having these interactions with spirit, and it's spirit is always with us. But when I started to be able to acknowledge and feel these experiences, I had some fear associated to it. There were physical manifestations in my body that
Mm.
I did not remember ever feeling outside of like you have a crush on somebody and you might get, like butterflies in your stomach, or, sometimes people tell you a story and you're like, ooh, I just got goosebumps. But this is like that on steroids is the best way to describe it because it's constant. And yeah, so I'm curious, how did you how did you lean into that, experience? Were there moments where you wanted to pull back? How did you move forward?
Um, I welcomed it. I embraced it full
Okay,
on because it's something I've been searching for.
okay,
I so when that happened, in around that time, I had already started doing a lot of research on the metaphysical, more modern time of looking at crystals, tarot. I mean, all of that stuff, all the
right,
divination stuff. I'd done some divination with my previous tradition, but I just was looking for a different path. So when that opportunity came, that was a clear message to me
okay,
from the divine. So I embraced it.
okay.
And then I went in the conundrum of, okay,
Mhm.
what's next? What's next? And then of
Yeah.
course that blocked my the
Yes.
development because now you're expecting so much because you're reading about all these different things that can happen and all this stuff. And I ended up blocking myself. And then of course that's the beginning journey of realizing I need to discern and then let it go and just let it happen and continue what you're doing and feel the flow, right? So
Lonnie's here as well. She's saying, "Good morning, fam." Yes, Lonnie. Thank you for joining us. And that's beautiful. That's a little bit different than what I've heard from most folks. So there was
mhm,
already I don't want to say a longing, but it's like Rumi says, what you are seeking is also seeking you.
mhm.
So
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
isn't that beautiful? And it's like the law of attraction as well, right? That's the law of attraction.
Yeah.
But uh, well, this is where I'm being led next, and I guess we might be jumping around for folks, but I know that you are clairaudient. I mean, you're psychic, and one of the ways that your psychic gifts work is through clairaudience. You hear your guides, but there's one particular guide, correct, that you work with most heavily. So
Yes.
how did you start to discern that gift, that entity, that connection? When did that manifest?
That manifested, I'd say around in April.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And last year, it was um, pretty much after a retreat that I went on with Ann Tucker.
Okay.
And it was after that time, it was a reveal of certain things about my path, my journey, right? And we can backtrack if you want to hear that story. That's a story in and of itself. A lot of synchronicities associated to that. But um, I basically had a very profound dream. It was so powerful. It was so powerful. It was basically, um, how much you want to hear about the,
I
the
wanna hear
dream?
all of it. That's what we're
Oh,
here for.
really?
Yeah, I
Okay.
want it all.
So the dream was basically, I was in a house.
Okay.
I was on the upper level, and I was in the room at the end of the hallway.
Okay.
I was with my younger son, and we were going to sleep. We were sleeping, and in the middle of the night, there was something that I sensed that was coming down the hallway, and I didn't know what it was. And I woke up, and there was a seer, a sage, this old woman in the room. She was sitting at a table, what you would typically think of what a seer sits in front of a table that does all
A
the
fortune teller.
divination stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, fortune teller.
yeah.
It had, I think it was like a red or moon colored tarp on top.
Wow.
And I looked at her and said, "What's going on?" And she turns to me like these, it's just
No, no,
amazingly
I love
powerful.
this. Yeah.
And she says, "Something wonderful is about to happen." And I was like, "Oh." And then that's when I kind of sensed something that in the hallway. So I went to the door to investigate, and she turned and she says to me, "You might want to bring someone with you." So, well, the only other person was my younger son who was with me, and so I opened the door, but there was no one there, except I could feel the presence, right? And I just I was like, how can I help you? And I'll backtrack. She said, prior to me opening the door, she said, his name is Ufred. Gave the name of the angel that I work with. And so when I opened the door, there was no one there. And I said, how can I help you? And he pulls my arm down the hallway into another room that was on the side. And um, we go in, and there's a bed in there, and there's a lump underneath the covers. And that was also a maroon colored cover. And he starts playing like tag. It's like hide and seek tag game with me. And at the end of it, I said, who's that? And the lump comes towards me, comes out underneath, and it's my older son coming out from underneath. So, and that's how the dream ended.
Wow.
But it was really powerful. I woke up going, and I felt like in my room. And so the first time I'd experienced something like this, so I was a little trepidatious.
Yes.
I wouldn't say fear, because it's
Yeah.
not.
It's just uncertainty for me when it's like,
Yeah.
this is exciting, but I'm unsure.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. And I said, so I called in Archangel Michael, and I said, Archangel Michael, is this, am I good? And I saw in my third eye, friend. I just saw the word friend. And so that was how he was introduced to me.
Wow.
And then of course I had it. I collaborated with 3, Lonnie included,
Yeah.
about that experience, and there were her and a few others. I don't want to name them probably, but I shouldn't have named it. Sorry, but they all collaborated, and it was very clear that I was supposed to work with them. What's really interesting is after the initial one, after the initial collaboration, he actually started talking to me about how I was going to do my task. And the reveal in the retreat was that I had my dream interpreted by Michael Sheridan. And he said there that I was supposed to protect Lightworkers. And to make a long story short, 6 months prior to that, at the same retreat, another channeler had said, hey, you went through all these experiences with your indigenous practices and all that stuff so that you can protect people like they're in this room. She's pointing to all the light workers in the room. And of course, in these 6 months, I didn't know, well, how am I supposed to do that? Well, when Ufrid came on, he started just sending these, like, this is how you're going to do it. I started writing things down, and it was beautiful. And one of the last collaborations I had asking about it, they said, yeah, you're supposed to do this. And as they were telling me, I'd already written down everything that they were telling me. So I was like, okay, that's affirmation of anything else. So it's history from there for me. So
Isn't that so cool? That's one of my favorite parts of life now is, regardless of who it is, it doesn't even have to be someone who it could just be, somebody in a grocery store line, but everybody can be a vessel of enlightenment for you. And everybody can give you these nuggets that activate something inside your DNA, give you a download, some sort of knowing that, connect you to the next portion of your quest.
yeah.
Wow, that's really beautiful. Well, with so tell me more then, how do you define a light worker?
I think um, if I were to define it, I think it's going to be someone uh, that understands that it's not just about the stage of life, has and is starting to progress in that pathway, and at some point maybe starts to understand their part in being of service to other people, and not that you have to do not business or anything else. It's just understanding that if you just carry that love
Mhm.
within yourself, and beginning to understand your part in the whole consciousness and start walking that path, I think is what I call light worker.
Yeah.
So
I love that. It's like what I took that, but as I asked the question is sometimes we know the essence of something, but we
mhm,
don't necessarily know how to define it. And so when
right,
you meet somebody, you can feel the essence of a light worker, but maybe don't have the words to. It's like what is love, right? It's a
right,
hard thing to describe. And if
right,
I'm understanding, you talked about with helping people, is there some folks that live a very hermitage type
yeah,
lifestyle and live on a mountaintop, but are absolutely aiding in the raising of the vibration of Earth. It doesn't mean that you have to be working hand in hand with other people. We all
right.
have different purposes and different gifts, and those evolve even year to year, moment to moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the way that I like to equate it, and if you're understanding that your part in the consciousness and what you do in your existence, if you walk into a Starbucks or you walk into a store
Mhm.
and just carry and
Mhm.
have that light within you, you're being a light worker because your energy carries on and it's catching to other people. It's just like you throw a pebble in a still lake, there's an influence, right? It just traverses out and it influences the whole lake, right? So, um, yeah, so that's how I see it. That's how I see it.
It's so beautiful you talk about the pebble. An example I use sometimes is, and this just happened within the last year, is I went to work and I can take an elevator to get to where I work, and uh, I get to the elevator and I was like, Jessica's here, and because I could smell her perfume, but she was 300 yards away. She probably was
Wow,
a half an
wow,
hour earlier. And it's like that's how energy works as well, but we don't necessarily. Um, view it with our senses that way, that there
mm,
was that residual energy there.
yeah,
So,
and there is that. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. I
isn't
mean,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, the whole idea of you think about somebody and then that person calls you, right? And I mean, right?
Be
Or
careful who you think about too.
right. So, yeah, I mean, come on now.
No, it's wild. Uh,
Yeah.
something else that I have learned too, and I wanna make sure that I can express this appropriately, and this is ultimately gonna be in the form of a question, but sometimes I have individuals that reach out to me with some sort of need or issue going on.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's just like a projection of what's going on. They're stressed out and they send a text message expressing their stress. I can't obviously change that. But something that I know is that like the moment someone reaches out with that concern or that question, it's almost like that immediately they get the answer just by sending the text to me. Do you get what I'm
Mhm.
saying? They
Mhm.
automatically just get that information just by getting the connection without
Right.
even an actual response.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, oh, please go ahead.
oh, so I mean, how I'm interpreting that is basically an intuitive response, them
Yes.
knowing themselves enough a little bit about it,
Yes.
or higher self is like, hey, here's the answer, right? Um,
Yes.
yeah, and it's just being able to discern when that happens. Oh, wait, and trusting in it, right? If anything
Yes.
else, right? So
Yes.
yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I guess root wise for me, um, when it came to life important decisions,
Yeah.
I've always trusted my intuition. You
Okay.
know, um, when I was 20, 22, 23,
Mhm.
um, I was at a crossroads. I had just finished doing some production stuff on, and I got the bug from doing working on this movie set, and I was living in Southern Washington at the time, and it was so strong. It was so strong. It's like, okay, this is what you need to pursue. Of course, it's not what I'm doing now, but it's one of those things where it changed my life, and I literally um, packed up everything I owned in my car, called up a friend that was living down in Los Angeles, and said, hey, can you kind of help house me for a little bit until I get settled? And that the course of doing that
Yeah.
set the series of events for everything else, just
Mhm.
doing and trusting in that because it felt so strong. And we all have those moments. I think it's just one of those things where you just have to trust in that. And, um,
Yeah.
you know, and if it's I think it's a major life decision. Uh, it's one of those things that you've mapped out in what you're doing here, right? The
Mm-hmm.
universe is going to present you with that decision again and
Yeah.
again and again.
That's the definition of karma, my friend. It's like
Right?
repeat itself, but it looks eerily similar.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and something that you said, and I don't want to say I would challenge it, but you talked about these. I think you said these larger. I don't remember the adjective, but larger life decisions. And I
Yeah.
would even just challenge that. That life is just full of decisions. They're just
Sure.
choices. We're just making choice to choice to choice, and there's a consequence of that choice. And depending on your belief in, I don't, it's not, it wouldn't be quantum mechanics, but that there's another world where that you made a different decision, and there's
Yep.
infinite realities where
Right.
from that fork in the road. um well, let's see here, where do I want to go? I would like to talk about healing, because in order for someone to truly, I don't want to say be a healer, be a light worker, there's some healing that needs to take place in order to, I guess, be a balanced, vessel of light. And so
Mhm.
I'm curious for you, what were some things in your, iteration of, this life that were, I guess, marker moments, things that needed to be healed?
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. So a lot of healing with inner child.
Yeah.
I recently did cutting ties with my father. Um, More specifically, things of feeling unworthiness,
Mm,
and feeling not heard. So one of the major things I had to heal was my throat chakra was blocked, and that was because the way I was raised, I couldn't
mm,
talk back, I couldn't express, you know,
yeah.
culturally speaking, right? Generally speaking, in my culture, I couldn't talk back. I get in trouble. I get my butt swatted, just stuff like that. And so that constantly suppressed my expression. Um, so that was something I had to heal in understanding. Hey, instead of being passive and being uh, and walking that way, in realizing that that was something I had to heal. There was that aspect to that. There were one of my karmic things I had to heal was expressed with my father,
Mm,
and during my awakening, during the healing process of that, I
mm,
realized the same pattern with me as well, and that was a little bit of emasculation, um, a lot of personal sacrifices, um, at my own personal expense, giving, what the terminology is, giving away a lot of your power,
mhm,
and that kind of ties in with not being able to vocalize, hey, I don't want to do that, right? So by not doing that and then not setting those boundaries,
mhm,
there was a lot of that I had to kind of work through as well. Um, and of course, karmic relationships,
mm,
as well.
mhm,
I think the big one, big one was my martial arts instructor,
mm.
my the Baba who was in my indigenous practice, between my mid 20s to all the way through my awakening. I mean, I was in that indigenous practice, so
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Deep,
deep,
deeply intertwined.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there was that, and the karmic with that, my ex-wife, and even everything. I mean, I'm sure you and I have some kind of thing that
We have to. Yeah,
we all do, right?
100%.
So all of those things, and then just kind of working through that. Those are the big ones.
Yeah.
What was really interesting is during my uh, cutting ties, it was all, at this point when I started it, I'd already forgiven my father for all the things that I'd experienced. So he's now passed.
Mhm,
I have a picture of him, and I honor him in some
mhm,
ways.
mhm,
But when I started doing cutting ties, what I found was absolutely surprised. There was a
mhm,
lot of resentment. There's a lot of just tears, right? Um, yeah,
Sadness.
it was just stuff coming out. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know all this stuff was in my system. So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So that was amazing.
Wow. When I was going through my awakening, I and I've always had, issues with my lungs. I grew up with asthma. I have an inhaler that I keep, I rarely use, but
Mhm.
mine was my heart chakra.
Mm,
And my god, when I started healing that, like, there would be moments I would just cough for, like, a half an hour, just getting this energy to move, and then just gasping for air. Like, it was
right.
just so tight, and things were moving in a way that they never had, and I cried shit, hours a day, just at nothing. I mean,
Mm,
obviously, it wasn't nothing, but, um, Erica, who we both know, and she's gonna be, joining, me for a live in February. I think it's February 4th, but,
mhm,
I did some work with her, and one thing that really helped me when I was healing was allow yourself to feel what you're feeling and not attach it to an event,
right.
not attach it to an experience, but
Yeah.
just allowing whatever you need to feel that in the moment.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
I'm curious for and this is gonna be a more like, I don't know, like on the nose type question, but we don't see a lot
sure.
of I don't anyway, don't see a lot of men, talking about healing or, necessarily having a spiritual practice,
Yeah.
and I know that we're built differently, just like chemically and, biologically, but so I'm curious, um, what does it feel like when I mean, do you have other male friends that you talk about, your healing experiences with? And,
Yeah.
um, okay, I was curious. Yeah. I mean, they do exist,
Yeah,
obviously, but
they do. They do. It's just a few far in between, right?
yes.
So yeah, and touching on your previous question, and I'll answer this question.
Please. Yeah.
I've already kind of, but that's one of the things that I had to kind of resolve with myself is that it's okay to be myself. Um, because fear of judgment. I mean, that's another aspect of healing too, right? And I struggle with that. I mean, we still struggle with. I mean, I still struggle with it. There's still layers of it, but not fearing. So, what was I saying? Sorry, I lost track.
No, you were talking about, being okay with being you.
Yeah, and that's something that within my heart, growing up, I've always tended to be very kind and very
Yeah.
just mellow
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and wanting to express a lot of love. But society teaches that guys can't.
I know.
So they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be, and whatever,
Yeah.
um, and so to circle around to what you asked me, it's hard for me it's the frequency of which the circle of the frequency where I connect with people well is to have people of the frequency that of healing and that frequency, that vibration, right? There aren't a lot of guys that do it.
No.
You
Yeah.
know and
Yeah.
so it is what it is. um
Um,
but I mean, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's I enjoy making new connections and
yeah.
things of that nature, but for some reason, certain connections are made easier when you have that commonality, right?
Yeah.
From that perspective. So, um, yeah,
It
um,
feels better too, right?
yeah,
There's, one of my favorite quotes, well, this blends a couple of different books, but, Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, and
mm,
then,
mhm,
The Four Agreements, both of them have, uh, sections where they talk about our connection with our body and then
mhm,
the mind, and specifically that your body doesn't lie. Your
mhm,
body will never, ever lie to you, but your mind will play tricks. And the
mhm,
one example that Eckhart gives is he says, you meet somebody and you don't like them. There's something about their energy you just don't like, but
mhm,
your mind goes into rationalizing, going, well, they didn't say anything mean and they seem like a nice person. And before you know it, it's 3 months down the road and you have this relationship with this person that from the get go wasn't supposed to be. but you
Right.
didn't trust the body, and you trusted you gave more power to the ego, which operates
Right.
out of here, and now you're in this space that doesn't feel good. And I
Right.
think a
Right.
lot of people, I'm sure that you experience this, is I see it. So I wait tables in the evenings. And so I see a lot of people that have relationships, whether they are, romantic relationships and they're married and or dating, or they're just platonic, and they're fucking miserable together.
Yeah.
They're not happy. They're so mean to one another. Uh, and some might say, like, that's just how we are together. But, it's just, I would just say that, whenever you let go of something, something new comes in.
Hmm.
So just know, because sometimes there's a fear where people are like, I'm not going to have any friends. That's just not the truth.
Right.
And if you let them go, the more aligned experiences and individuals will come into your
Right.
life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I equate that as the recent thing I started saying to myself, go with the flow. Or, I mean,
Mhm.
that's been said for a long time,
Yeah.
but to really experience that and trust that, hey, if you're being called to do something, for happiness, or, conceptually speaking,
Yeah.
there's got to be a little bit of leap of faith to be able to do it, right? So,
100%. Yeah.
I mean, we talk about, so that flow, and energetically too. I mean, that's kind of part of manifesting too, right? At least in my opinion. If you've got all this that you're carrying, and I'll use your example of the relationship. If you're not
Yeah.
happy in the relationship,
Yeah.
you're carrying a lot in that.
Yeah.
And how do you really energetically make room for a different energy flow to come in unless you release it? You know, there's um, so uh, that's how I see it conceptually, and it certainly has been my experience. When you just have to take that leap of faith, and it's tough. It's hard, right? It's hard, but at the same time, it's also sometimes what we're being taught while we're here. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, and that, and of course, once you let it go, and then you learn other things, more lessons come. But it's one of those things when you
100%.
once you experience that, you can go through it.
Yeah.
It gets easier. It gets
Yes.
easier, and then you
Yes.
go, wow, this is beautiful. I'm on
Yeah.
this beautiful journey. I'm free, and I'm happy, right? So
You just elicited emotion in me, because I just know how powerful I am today and how strong I am today,
yeah.
based off of choices that I've made in my life. And uh, the life I live today looks nothing like the life I lived even 3 years ago. And the one that I lived 3 years ago, I had the house and the image and the car and the job and the income, and I was empty. I was
Hmm.
really empty and void of anything authentic. There was a pain in my heart that was so deep and palpable. I didn't know where I didn't had 0 idea where it actually originated from. And,
Hmm.
I just started making choices, whether it was, quitting a job that I
Yeah.
now know to be a cult, whether oh, this is funny, your hands, by the way, can, through the video, t
Oh,
can
did I
do
do that?
I think I did it.
Oh,
Like, you can
I
make
can
different.
do
Yeah, you can.
that. I didn't
Um,
mean to do this. I don't know how I
well,
did
I
that.
did that. I did that because it's
Oh,
a
okay.
screen. Uh,
Sorry to
uh,
interrupt your flow.
no, I
It's
love
so
that. That's,
beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
a great light of life.
Yeah.
Um, but, yeah, just, but today life is so beautiful for me. And
Mm,
if I were to be in the seat that I was in 2020, and they were gonna go, "This is where you'll be in 3 years," I would have been like, "No fucking way."
yeah.
There's no way that that could actually happen, and it's just choice by choice. Um,
Yeah. That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable about it,
yeah, yeah,
especially for people to see. And um, that's beautiful. Thank you.
yeah.
That's,
Yeah, oh,
yeah.
yeah. There was no, kinda like how you shared, because sometimes I meet with folks, and I do wanna connect about your business, so that's where I'm gonna go next, and this kinda connects with mine as well, but is sometimes I meet with individuals and they know what's next. They have the feeling inside of them. They're getting all of these synchronicities. They just know, like, they have excitement. There's joy associated to that next step, whatever it is. But based off of the life you lived and the life you planned, that's probably going to be one of your hardest decisions. And that's why it is one of your hardest decisions for the soul's growth. And so, but for me, and so there's some trepidation for folks. For me, when I think back to a lot of the choices I made around quitting my job, selling the house, going on the road in my RV, there was no other option for me. Like,
Mm.
I didn't want to go back. That going back was so dark and just sad that there was only forward for me. Um, so I'm curious, when you work with folks with your business, and it's Weaving Light, right? That's the name of
Yes.
your company, which is such a great name.
Thank you.
Weaving Light, right? Like, I love that. Um, uh, Tell me about the clientele that you work with. Like, how do I'm sure that you start to notice commonalities in people, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I've learned a lot in the process of doing it. How raw do you want me to get when when I talk about this? Because it can bring up.
As you feel comfortable with, but I
Yeah.
need to get a tissue. My nose just started running. So I'm gonna be right back.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, sorry, buttermilk. Okay. And I got some water.
Okay. Um, so typically, there are several potential phases to what I do. The typical is, let me preface what I say first,
Yeah.
because I know this kind of conversation can get pretty raw.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to do is say it or present it in a manner that causes fear in
Mm.
anyone that hears this, or even between you and me.
Yep.
And the conversation really is just about being awareness and what I do. So, because a lot of things, because what I do, and this recent reveal was to me as well, is that what I do in for protection and clearings comes from my heart center.
Mm.
So it comes from the joy that I have that I can express, the healings that I've done. So it clears that, right? And if I can't, then I do it from a place of grace and love, where I'm projecting, you know, uh, my evolved self, so that I'm in this space of no resistance.
Mm.
And all that comes from the heart and what I do.
Mhm.
So just want to make sure. But the people that I work with, they're being infiltrated, they're being attacked. And the way that I equate it is that, we're talking about frequencies, and the term I use, entities, attachments, that can instill fear in itself, but that's the only way that I know how to express this.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's lower frequencies. They the levels dictate certain attributes and effects, and typical things that sometimes people may experience will be, a change in mood, and
Mm.
things of that nature. Sometimes, and if it gets heavier and stronger, it can actually start affecting the way that you walk and the way that you carry yourself. And
Your friendships, all of a sudden you stop going out. You don't want to go to work. I mean, there could be there could be so many different uh, consequences of that.
yeah,
Mhm.
and I'm sure I mean, walking out in the street, I'm sure you experience that. You walk by somebody, you go, "Whoa, that person's carrying some really low vibe heaviness," and yeah, um, and so for me, what I do is I go in, and I remove it,
Mhm.
and the best I can. It's not a one trick pony
Yeah.
conversation. It's not like what I do is gonna just all of a sudden you're no longer depressed. To use your example,
Yep.
it's our essentially we're responsible for a lot for our own protection, and there's a lot of it that goes into play. Some It depends on your path, depends on your healings, depends on, and
Mhm.
you know the woundings that you may have. All
Mhm.
of those things reduce the light that you express, and that gives opportunity for these lower frequencies to latch onto you, um, and to affect you. And so, what I do is I try to help remove that.
Mhm.
And I make it very clear, if I see something that there's heaviness and wounding or something, I'll just say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. I know that, this is a level something, or rather, it may come back. Right. So that's, but understand that. And that I'm just being truthful and raw with the clients I work with. The other aspect of it is that I will weave. That's why weaving light comes in. It came really easy. It's like, oh, well, that, that was easy as far as in the business.
Yeah.
One of the gifts that's amazing from that I've been blessed with is to be able to, if you have an item, a stone or a personal item, a ring, a necklace or something that is important to you. And I asked that, I said, is there something that is important to you, that you wear all the time, that is, that resonates with you all the time? I can weave protective fields onto that, and it'll hold that, and then I weave it specifically for your frequency, through the angels that I work with. So, and it's been an amazing journey for me. Spirit is, ever since my reveal, it's been like, boom, boom. Okay, now that you learn this, you're going to see this kind of entity, and then I start seeing that. And okay, now that you've learned that, here's another level of it. So it's been just a beautiful journey of Spirit teaching me what I need to do to prep for this this ascension that we're going through. So, and all the weavings that I've done since April have shifted. It changes because the Earth's frequency is changing, people's frequency changes, and so oftentimes I'll just say, "Hey, I need to change the weaving." So and that's what I do. I also, and the weaving, it doesn't have to be necessarily personal. It can be within for your home. I also clear entities from the property, from the house or the place that you reside in. Also hold space for, protect space for if you have like a gathering that you're teaching a bunch of people, even for something like this. So, I actually did something before we did.
Cool.
So yeah, and just to ask angels to basically let this be a communion of light and love, and any attempt at any low frequency stuff to come in is not allowed, and needs to be transmuted to the light. So, and the particular things that I do is, there are a lot of people that do the work that I do. Generally speaking, it's pushing, removing the entity.
I got it. So it goes somewhere else.
It goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just gifted with being able to burn it and then give it to the divine, because one of the things that's happening is that with the frequency of the Earth changing the way that it is, a lot of the dark consciousness is part of the universal balance. It's coming out. It's the heavier stuff is coming out of the Earth. So I'm seeing more and more of the heavy stuff coming in, and I can't just push it away. It's just, right. I have to burn it, and the angels have made it very clear that that's the nature of my soul expression. Is, and part of my gifting is to be able to not just burn it, let the renewal process happen for that energy, and then divine takes it, transmutes it to love. So that's as raw and true as I can say. I'm getting activations talking about it.
Then you're right where you're supposed to be.
So yeah. So and I've had very, very recent revelations about it too. It's just constant changes. The angels have talked to me about, cause I asked them recently, it's like, well, how do I make what I do more potent? How do I make it stronger? And they gave me answers and some things about, your own personal wounding can basically affect, and it really, so, they gave me some things to do about that, but really that attributes to our own personal spiritual hygiene, right? And they've made it very clear in previous channelings where, the more that you can heal yourself, the more your own personal soul illumination comes out, and darkness can't exist in that illumination.
Yeah.
There's part, I mean, conceptually speaking, there's part of the pathway that we all have. So
Mm,
constantly try to heal that. But the more that we do that, the denser our light is,
mhm.
and that makes it in and of itself its own protection. So that's an important message that if anything else I can just share with anybody, that's something that
Yeah.
I love to share with people. So
If I'm understanding, so what Mia is saying is, albeit he offers these services, and I am gonna share his contact information, and if you ever wanna change your contact information that I have available in the description box, let me know, me, because I can
mhm.
update it, but there's contact information there that you can work with him, but you can be your own practitioner, and the more that you heal, the more that you're able to, um, essentially not interact with the lower vibrational energies.
Yes,
You're
yes,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's
and that can help through all that aspect of it. I mean, there are certain things that I do that I learned from my indigenous practice,
okay.
that it's not necessarily the actual ritual or technique. It's whatever we all do. It's really the intention of doing it that allows us to
Yeah.
do it, right? So one of the things I do is that draws attention to my focus of like programming is I'll snap my finger, or
Mhm.
it draws intention, sound, and energy to the intent of programming something.
Mhm.
If you're doing the same thing, if you're doing a tarot reading or whatever, you
Mhm.
may have a certain technique that you do to kind of get your mind frame into that, and
Mhm.
that sets the intention. So there are a lot of things that I've learned to help sets people intention, visualization, and all that stuff, because our thoughts are powerful energy, powerful energy. So
I was gonna say one thing that I noticed for myself, and I don't wanna share too much about, there's just certain things I like, that I like to keep secret for me. You do know this information about me, but, um, I just planned this life, with some special gifts associated to it, um, and let's just say associated to entities or attachments that's
uh-huh.
different or unique than other people. Um, but I will say for myself, what I experience a lot of times when I'm doing healing with individuals is their thoughts are the primary way in which they're attracting these things. Whether
Yes.
it's, um, you know, uh, thoughts around being unsafe or
Hmm.
thoughts, sadness, depression, lacking. And
Yes.
so how I have best come to describe this is like everything is energy. And so let's say we have a low vibration entity or an attachment, and maybe those are two different things. I kind of think of them as the same,
Mhm.
versus like an implant is different to me than an entity, but or an infiltration, but uh, is you have this thought around nobody likes me. Okay, so it's a low vibrational thought associated to sadness, uh,
Mhm.
maybe isolation, and then there's this energy bug that goes, "Ooh, I'm isolation,"
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, this thought around isolation starts getting even bigger and bigger, and then this piece of energy that was really I don't wanna say benevolent, but not really, doesn't have any malicious intent, it's just attracted
Mhm.
to energy,
Yep.
it's making you more and more isolated because it's doing its job.
Right.
It's the isolation entity, and so it's gonna make you feel more and more, and then maybe you stop answering your phone, and you stop going to work, and you start grocery shopping at the wee hours of the night or early in the morning,
Right.
uh, so, um, would is that an alignment for, some of the things that you do or
Yeah. Conceptually, I would call that a level one, because it's just the level one is just, you could walk through the park
Yep,
and you pick up something.
yep,
Uh, I mean, there are certain areas that nurture lower frequency things. So if you walk, you can pick up something.
like a
Uh,
bar probably,
yeah,
or
bar, right at the bar. And so it could be level one, and then let's say, to use your example, it doesn't necessarily have like bad intention. It's just doing
never,
its thing,
yeah,
right, just
mhm,
its nature, right? So but now it's there, and you continue to nurture that frequency within yourself,
yeah,
that feeds it,
yeah,
that
yeah,
feeds it, and then it can grow.
yeah,
That's how I see it. It gets more
that's
powerful.
yep, Yep.
And then now you've been doing it for 2 or 3 years. Now it affects everything else about, that frequency. And now it's pretty strong, pretty powerful, right? Things can, I mean, on that level, that's just an example, but yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I see it. And and for the most part, I think if people have an understanding of spiritual hygiene, I mean, a lot of tools are out there in the system for you to understand what to do. The sage, Palo Santo, resins, sprays and things like that. Those are all things that set your intention, right? And some of those already have frequencies designed to do that. Um, those things can pretty much, as long as you're doing it on a regular practice,
Yeah.
it can help you remove the level ones. Other things that you can do is using the elements as part of your visualization. I do it regularly every time I step in the shower. If
Mm.
you think about how the river flows, right? It's constantly just
Mhm.
pushing.
Mhm.
And so if you connect to that frequency of the water energy, you're standing in the shower, you just ask, hey, please, spirit of the water, please cleanse my physical channels and my spiritual channels the best you can. And then just visualize
Mhm.
and then connect with your own body and realize that you might have some aches or pains or some,
Mhm.
stagnant parts, and visualize the water just washing that down the sink. That's Those thoughts are very powerful. Those are very, very powerful things. And you do it on regular practice,
Yeah.
you're doing pretty well. So to remove that, other things is going for walks in nature,
Mhm.
grounding, the air, just getting fresh air once in a while, going for walks. I mean, how many
Yes.
times have we just been in the house all day, right? And
Yeah.
then you get out. I mean, this is just stuff that, and then you go, I need to go for a walk, and you feel great after that. Well, you've moved the energy. You've
Yeah.
moved the energy and it's flowed. So the sun is wonderful.
Yeah.
Sun is
Yeah.
wonderful for removing moving stuff. Can I
Oh,
tell you a story about that?
please. Yes.
I went to a metaphysical store,
Okay.
in Seattle, and I walked in. I walked into it, and instantly, trying, my angel said, "Oh, something's up,"
Yeah.
and instantly I get this warning. Okay, something just latched onto you,
Um,
and I was like, "Oh yeah." So I'm walking through the store and I'm trying to remove it, and
yeah.
it's not working. I'm like,
Okay.
"Hey, can," and he just says to me, "Go out to the sun. Just
Mm.
go out to the sun." And so I left the store and I went to the sun, and it worked. It was just like, the sun, just the natural essence of the sun is illuminating. So those principles and concepts, just you can apply to just your own personal spiritual hygiene. You know, yeah.
Thank you. That's a beautiful story. And that's something I would say so simple, right? Just going outside.
Hmm.
But somebody, if they didn't trust their intuition, that's silly. I don't need to do that.
Hmm.
That's the free will component. We've got
Yep.
destiny
Yep.
and then free will.
Yeah.
Something else that I find helpful is having a clean space.
Hmm.
Have going through closets and
Yes.
donating or throwing away. It's no
Absolutely.
wonder they're called possessions. It's like who owns who. Those are
Yes.
that's energy, and that's a dense energy, right? It's quite literally a solid physical manifestation of something. Um,
Yes.
Getting rid of things. Like I have a rule in my house. If I go and buy a shirt, let's say,
Hmm. Hmm.
a shirt's leaving. Like if something goes out. And mind you, I live in a smaller area. I live out of my RV still, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
that just things can make me. And I used to own a home, and I would look sometimes, and I'd be like, God, where did this stuff come from? And I'm like, oh yeah, every item I brought in. Nothing accidentally just arrives.
Yeah.
Everything arrives because you asked for it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I've had to clear homes that way, where I tried to sense, when I do a clearing, I'll check the person's auric field, and not just in this, I also check in timelines and lifetimes, and I also check their home. And so there have been times when I check someone's home and I just see this denseness, like in a certain area. It's like, what's up with the second story? Or I'm seeing a lot of, oh, this is where I store all my stuff. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And And sometimes the higher level entities, they've housed that base, use that energy, and have just thrived off that stagnant energy. And now they're doing that. So so that happens too, and I definitely experienced that. So every once in a while, going down there and using Palo Santo, or understanding there might be wounding associated to some of that possession,
Yes.
that might be something to consider. So yeah, I mean, you know, the whole idea of reminiscing on past things that are causing, pain and all that stuff, that's wounding. So
I
and
had
then
a
that. So it's something to think about.
I had a teddy bear, and I believe his name was Teddy growing up, and,
That's
I
cute.
uh, yeah, 100%. You talked about, though, the wounding. When
Yeah.
I was going through tubs of things, like, dude, 2020, I was getting rid of everything, like, and
Mhm.
ultimately, I sold my house, so that was, worked out good, but when I held that bear as an adult,
Mhm.
it was so sad.
Mm,
It was
mm.
like it was this, it was so sad, like, all of the sadness that I experienced as a child and would hug onto this little bear, and so I thanked it for everything, and I threw it away. I let it go 'cause it just wasn't positive for me to hold on to anymore. It had served its purpose.
Yeah, I'm having a somatic experience listening to your story.
What does that mean? Somatic experience.
Well, I'm feeling the sadness as
Oh,
you're telling the story because I can connect with that
yeah,
experience. It's yeah, yeah, that's
yeah,
beautiful. When did
yeah.
you do that?
In 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I got rid of Letterman's all these like newspaper clippings from high school and, prom pictures and all yearbooks. I have no yearbooks. I don't care about yearbooks. I've lived many like all of that stuff to me was just extraneous stuff. I didn't
Mm,
care what people wrote, like, "Have a cool summer." And again, if that if you find joy in that, beautiful, but for me, that was just stuff,
right.
uh, identity of the ego, and I don't need that in my present moment.
Yeah.
Uh,
Ego. I know, right? Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's part of our existence. It's part of the challenge of
yeah,
understanding the influence it has on us.
yeah,
And it's just discerning when it kicks in and realizing, oh, that's my ego. I don't need to go there, you know?
yes,
And
yeah,
I used to have conversations with my ego all the time. It's like, hey, I appreciate it, but get out of my head. I don't,
yeah,
and I'll
yeah,
literally do stuff like, okay, I house my ego back here. I'll just boom.
okay,
I
yeah.
visualize all. I mean, the
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
I do,
no, well,
you
I
know.
visualize mine as a unicorn. I'm like, "You think you're so special." And, I sometimes I'll put a bridle on it, and I'm like, "We're going places. I got this. You don't got control over me." Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's all
So,
visualization. Yep.
and it's amazing how that works. It's just like when you realize you're starting to get angry or you're starting to get fearful
Yeah,
because your ego's kicking in,
yeah,
and then you discern it,
yeah,
and then I get rid of it, and then I ask the angels, hey, can you please remove those
yeah,
thought patterns from my head? And then boom, this lightness comes in, right? And it's just like, oh wow, it's beautiful. So yeah, I mean, everyone can do that. It's a beautiful journey to realize that you have that much power, that much strength to garner the
yes.
frequency you carry. It's beautiful. So
If someone is just well, I also wanted to say, if anybody watching this has any questions for me, please, I know he would love to answer them. Or
mm,
if you're watching this after the fact and you've got a question for him, please ask it, and we will get an answer for you. Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
but w I can tell you, and I know I planned it this way, but when I was going through my awakening, if I would have heard somebody say, like, "Talk to the angels," or, "I just call on Archangel Michael." Um, so how do you what do you mean by that? Like, how did you foster relationships with these beings, archangels or spirit guides? Maybe you
Right.
just call it spirit. How could someone start to do that themselves?
Well, for me, connecting, in our existence here, at least the way I see it, what opens up your ability to, number one, you might be gifted with it already, but what opens up your ability to connect with it is just doing research, and you can find a lot of information out there. Make sure it's redundant information, it's good information.
Yeah.
um, and then identify with what that is and what that means to you.
Yeah.
You know, so Archangel Michael, you brought that up as an example. He's known
Yep.
as the energy of protection.
Yep.
So, and he's portrayed with a shield and a sword, and just a
Warrior.
warrior. Yeah, a warrior aspect of it. And it's not just Archangel Michael. You can use Hermes. You can use whatever
News. Who's that?
yeah, whatever that Thor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you identify with that
Yep.
and just say, hey, they're my protecting energy.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit doesn't necessarily care about what you're calling them.
Yeah.
As long as you're doing it with good light and love, and you just say, hey, can you please protect me, or can you help remove this energy that's here? For the most part, they work. I mean, that's been my experience. So when I shared you with my dream with Archangel Michael, I had identified Archangel Michael as a protector.
Mm-hmm.
I use Archangel Gabriel for healing, right?
Yeah, I do too.
So when I've had to heal doing shadow work and all that stuff, I was constantly saying, help me out here. I also asked for a lot of sacred fire to come down and just burn away whatever stagnant in my system. But I identified with that energy and just asked for it. If you don't know the names, that's okay too. You can just say, angels of just powerful healing, I really need some help here. Or just ask the divine. Can you help me, please? I need to heal this, or I can feel I'm in pain. Can you, and do those things. I mean, it's just all intention. Be very, be specific with what you need, and connect with it, and just be regular with it. And it's really, and it doesn't have to be crazy. When I say regular, it might instill like you got to sit in meditation for hours on end, but really just a minute or two, connecting periodically. And asking for help. And sometimes it might take longer because you might be emotionally dealing with something, right? And feel that emotion, feel the emotion, go through it. And at some point when you're ready to let it go, then ask for help. It's absolutely okay. It's beautiful to do that. So
something that might be more accessible for folks too is like an ancestor. Like maybe if you think of your grandmother, your grandfather, or your uncle as this powerful or strong, or again, whatever that frequency that you're seeking, connect with them. They'll come through too. So I know this is not necessarily, just an anecdotal story is, and this was before my awakening. It was probably like 3 or 4 months before, but I had listened to this podcast of Chelsea Handler's, and she talked about the fact that, I don't know if you know this story, but she's like one of 5 or 6 kids, and her eldest brother, which was her closest relationship while she was in high school, he went on a weekend trip. And before he left, she said to him, "Why are you leaving me with these people?" The family. And he's like, "Don't worry, I'll be back." And he died that weekend. So that was a real, I guess, marker moment in her life. And she started to realize, though, as an adult, that she could ask for him. She could ask for him to show up in different ways. And so I started to do that with my grandmother. And I'm telling you, and then and other deceased family members. And it was like daily, these messages were coming through from them. And so you can do that. Just know that, you can talk and communicate and ask for any type of sign from anybody. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but it will come through. I can promise you that.
Yeah. It's a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
It's amazing how fast it works too.
Yeah. Oh my.
They're like Johnny on the spot. Boom. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
I feel better now,
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. And the other thing too, I don't know if you experience this, but a lot of times when I'm working with folks, we've gotten a lot of fixated on what we don't want to have happen. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want that. It's like, well, what do you want?
Yes.
Ask for what you want. If you're like, I don't want to be alone. Okay. I want to feel connected.
Yes.
Whatever it is that you're seeking. And sometimes it's hard to turn that negative into a positive. You're like, fuck, I don't actually know what it is I want. And so you can be kind of in limbo if you're like, I keep asking for this thing, but if you're not asking for it in a way in which the universe can deliver, they don't know how to.
Yes. And just in the example you gave,
Yeah.
there's a frequency in which it comes from, right? When you are saying, I don't want this,
Mhm.
I don't want to be alone, you're coming from a place of being lonely,
Yeah.
right? And then it comes from a place of pain,
Yeah.
right? But if you say, I want to meet a wonderful person, right? It
Yes.
comes from a place of desire and hope,
Yeah.
right? It's much different frequency. So that's something to think about, and why saying it to a positive aspect
Mm.
changes the frequency of the ask and the desire. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and it
beautiful.
goes back to intention, like you had shared.
What was that?
Oh, I said it goes back to intention.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, no,
So just to reiterate for folks, if you're just now joining, Me's contact information is below if you feel some sort of connection with him. And just know that sometimes when I work with people, and when I say work, like me seeking out some sort of help, I may not even know necessarily the help that I'm seeking from them, but I feel a connection. There's some sort of, you know, draw into this person's energy. So if you feel that with me, follow it because you don't know what beautiful creations can come out of collaborating with this person.
Yes, I agree with that too. That's amazing. We all have, and that might be part of an agreement that you have. If you feel the draw, the resonance, I follow it. And
Yes.
if you don't, then there's no judgment. It's just we're all on this path together. And hey, I'm feeling this draw.
Yeah.
And so whatever I know, I'll share with you freely and
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
But
Well, see,
yeah, go ahead.
something that's coming up for me is I'm curious is um, sometimes people, when we're talking about attachments or even entities, and when I think of entities, I'm an entity, you're an entity. Uh,
Mhm,
but, sometimes entities just get a bad rap, like there's some sort of negative connotation. But
mhm.
uh, I have met people that don't even like to speak the word.
Yes, yes.
And, for me, I just don't function that way in the sense, like, to me, that almost gives more power to it by,
Mm,
like, not this thing's there, we're just not gonna talk about it. I grew up in a family where we like, things were there, anger, deceit, what have you, we just weren't gonna talk about it like it didn't happen, and it
it's like indirect acknowledgement that it's there.
I would have never called it that, but absolutely,
Yeah,
indirect acknowledgement. And
yeah.
so what would you say to folks, in relation to that?
I can only share my experience in relation to that.
Mhm.
It's you can think of it as a cold.
Okay.
You know, um, I, I I I experienced things enough to know that hey, it happens, and if you just think about it conceptually, not necessarily calling it that, but
Yeah.
if you just
Mm.
reflect upon your own personal experience of the people you meet, right? You meet someone that is high vibing,
Mhm.
just beautiful and joyous, versus someone that is just having a miserable. You feel that energy, and there are parts of that is sometimes a low vibrational influence.
Yeah.
Um, so it my experience that it's out there. I mean, I see it when I do my work. Um,
Yes.
I and um, I've had people that aren't necessarily clients, but in working with the circle of light workers, there are people that speak that way, and that's fine. That's part of your own journey that you have to the path that you're walking. But there are times when the person that speaks that, and because I'm in the course of doing work for the people that they're around, the the person that speaks that is actually infiltrated, or they have their own. And so I've seen that where it doesn't necessarily the indirect acknowledgement doesn't you're not impervious to these kinds of attachments or influences. So um,
Yeah.
and we get them every day,
Yeah.
just walking,
Yeah.
and it's just level one. Just you're walking through, you walk by somebody that's having a a crappy day, and they say F you, and boom, that's a psychic attack. And now think about how that affects you, right? It puts you in a bad mood.
Yeah.
That that's
Yeah,
an
you
attack.
just exchange energy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's what you call it. It's still, there's that experience. How you can call it whatever it is. There's still that energy, that exchange that happens, and we can go with different terminologies, entities, whatever. And that instills, like I said, it instills fear, but just call it low frequency, whatever. But we all have this experience of low vibe and high vibe all the time, and sometimes that stuff there's a consciousness to it, and there's some heavy stuff, especially when it comes to wounding and things of that nature. So
Oh,
yeah,
100%.
yeah. And sometimes you need a little help to get rid of it. So
We
yeah,
all do. We could all use help. That's one thing I had to learn, was that it's okay to ask for help. And 'cause I was always the one to offer it. That was kind of part of my identity, was being, and I haven't done human design yet, in the sense of, like, I've taken a human design test, I've done a little bit of research, but the numbers that I am, part of the compulsion of this lifetime for me is to be a helper. And so, but I had to learn how to receive help and also just ask for help. I am in need of something right now, and allow for that energy, and support to come out, because people want to do that. That's the thing I had to learn. People would want to help me, and yeah, they do want to help you. Uh,
right.
but yeah, I mean, we've all hurt people, right? That's what I've learned. And so when I'm having, especially like I'm serving people, sometimes it's the first sentence they say to me and it's just really rude. And
Mhm.
I just think to myself, who hurt you? Because nobody really wants to show up that way. I truly believe. I don't think that's in anybody's nature, is to be this dark, mean, dismissive individual, but their life experiences created a shell in which that's the way that they operate today,
Yes,
in order to
yes,
feel protected,
yes.
or what powerful, or whatever the whatever they're seeking to feel.
Right, right.
Um, I have a jar of questions that I normally ask folks. I mean, not the whole jar. Are you open to a question? I'm just gonna go grab them.
Sure, sure. I didn't get these questions before. I should have asked, hey, you can ask any jar questions.
I, now I gotta find them. Shoot. I misplace these every time. Dang it. All right, I'm gonna pull up one on my phone because I have these printed.
I still have the stork that you gave me.
Oh, do you really?
Yes.
I love
Like,
that. I forgot that I gave that to you.
so
Yes.
people ask about it all the time. They ask me, "Did you draw that?" I said, no, no, a good friend of mine.
Oh,
You know.
really? Yeah, that was
Mm,
part of my finding a hobby,
mm,
because I spent so much time doing things for others that I didn't even know how to spend time with myself.
mm.
I didn't know how to just create things without going and being like, "Look what I created," because my
Right,
identity was so wrapped up on the external.
right.
Um, shoot. Well, I'm just gonna ask one out of my head.
Okay.
Let me just, can I get one here? Well, let's do this. Does God exist?
Yes.
Okay.
We all have different definitions of it.
Mhm,
You know, the energy. I mean, people say the force.
mhm,
People say the divine. People say God. People say Allah.
mhm,
My
mhm.
old indigenous tradition used to call God Olodumare.
Okay.
But it's yeah, yeah, it's the essence and existence of the universe and existence. That's
Mhm,
kind of how I see it.
mhm,
But my awakening has brought on that the essence of it is love,
mhm,
and
mhm,
that's one thing that's, if anything else, changes your life when you realize that and you connect with it.
mhm,
you know Everything else is just part of it. It's part of it,
mhm,
if you allow to see it, be yourself to see that,
mhm,
and trust in that. um
mhm,
yeah.
Mhm. How could if what I just got for information wise is like everything is rooted in love, the rest is just noise.
Mhm. Mm.
You know, the rest is just this distraction almost, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's part of this existence in our incarnation is to learn these lessons, right?
Yeah.
We can get into the metaphysical paradigms and beliefs with that if you want, but
Yeah.
I mean, why we're here, why do we reincarnate? As much as we do, right?
Mhm.
But if you do research, even in my old system, they used to say that part of why we come to this planet is to try to perfect the pure soul essence. They used
Mhm.
to call it ori, but it's just another term for your soul, right?
Mhm.
Try to perfect that. Well, perfection means that you're gonna keep practicing, or not that we could, but the
Mhm.
soul and the
Yeah.
divine,
Right.
right? So even in that tradition, and
Yeah.
even in the new paradigm that I find myself in,
Yeah.
there is that same message: is that we reincarnate. We're learning these lessons over different lessons, right?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to experience um, experience what love is,
Mhm.
and the only way that you understand that is the contrast of that, which
Mhm.
is why we experience what we do. Um, someone I heard in my research said that if you envision just pure love, right? Just envision pure love.
Mhm.
You know what that is, unless you experience the contrast or
Mhm.
variations of that,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
It's hard for us to envision that because once we're born, bam, we're in it, right?
Even
But if you,
before, whenever we enter into the womb, however that happens on an energetic level, like, we're getting all of mom and dad's if they're fighting, if
Mhm.
maybe mom's worried about financially supporting you. Again, there could be if there's 7 kids already, and how can I possibly take care of an 8th? I mean, all of that's gonna influence your, do you feel welcome? Do you feel safe? Do you feel
Right,
special? Are your needs maybe you're adopted? Again, all of these things, moving from another country, everybody speaks a new language. I mean, all of that would significantly influence, an individual
right,
without
right.
a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you come out of it and you realize, okay, this is what I experienced. And if you experience and you learn from it, then you realize, oh, okay, this is what it means to
Mhm. Mhm.
to be joyful. This is what it means to have love, because I wasn't joyful here. Now I'm joyful, right? I mean, it's just the basic concept, but really it's just love, right? It leads back to your question. What is, does God
Yeah,
exist?
yeah. So interesting because when you were talking about your like, imagine pure love, ironically enough, the image that I got was a baby, and
Mm,
most babies are so open, right? And not all,
mm,
like, trust me, there's this little neighbor baby, and he is so it's his mom, dad, and sister. That's it. Everybody, even the faces he makes, it's just, and again, who knows? There could be some sort of trauma or influence already, but I think
mhm,
it's part of his personality. But the next thing I thought though, so I had pure love, this image of a baby, and then and you were talking about, this contrast, and what I thought of as love, somebody else could think of as annoying, and somebody else could perceive as, heavy responsibility. Again, whatever that is, but
right.
it's going to be based off of the lens and the amount of healing that you've done that you're able to see what is
Yes,
actually there.
yes, yes. Yeah, no, it's the noise.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
noise.
Yeah.
So, well, isn't that why they call it awakening, when you realize this is noise? Okay, how do I get past this noise, right? Then that brings on your continued awakening through all of your life, right? Wherever it is that you started. So, um, that's the journey. So,
Mhm.
I don't
That's
think we ever are finished awakening. I mean,
fun.
we
We're never.
say,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I said, mine probably started around 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But really, I don't think I'm gonna ever stop.
Yeah.
because there's
Yeah.
just constant healing and constant lessons
Yeah.
and revelations. So
Yeah.
it's a continuing journey. So
Well, and the soul's eternal, right? So no one ever really dies. That's something else that gave me a lot of freedom and knowing, especially with reincarnation. It was like, and there's no hell. That's another one that's made up as well, that we go to hell or that we're somehow like born sinners. It's just not true. Uh,
right,
you
right.
know, God loves us and, we're made in the image of God and God doesn't make any junk. So,
That could be a 10-hour conversation right there. Just that.
I, the Catholic upbringing, I'm not even religious, but the
Yeah,
what I know about Catholicism is it's founded on a lot of shame.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And well, a lot of I mean, it's about control, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, there's even evidence now of a lot of the, if you follow any of Dolores Cannon, I think in there, I can't remember which resource, but there's been a lot of information about uh, the origin of the Bible, the Council of the Essenes and all this stuff. I think if I'm saying it right, that
Mhm.
at some point someone sat down and said, okay, what do we put in this Bible, right? And what do we take out? And what do we put in? What do we take out? And all that stuff. I'm not well versed enough to know what specifically where and when that took place, but that information is certainly out there for anybody that might be interested in
Yeah.
doing research on the origins of the Bible. You know,
Yeah.
at its source, yeah, there's love in there if you look for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
but um, I just don't resonate with stuff that's based off of fear and control.
100%. Yeah.
Especially when you've had things such as the crusade in our history, the crusades, when that was just basically because we didn't believe in the same stuff you did and people are dying from it and killing from,
Yeah. Yeah.
that doesn't make sense to me. So,
And we're still doing that today, right? If
right.
you look
Yeah.
at religion in general, like, I mean, it's under a different, different outfit, but,
A different outfit. Yeah.
yeah.
No, you're right. No, thank you. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right. Absolutely.
but
So,
I think we're learning, and when I say we're learning is even just on my day-to-day as I walk by, I'll go back to me working at this restaurant, is I'll hear like, it was like it was like a spiritual experience, I'll hear somebody say, and, "Do you feel the energy in here?"
mm,
And so who knows the level of consciousness that they're at, and it doesn't even matter, but I will just say, or even the other day, I was walking my dog and this little girl goes, "Oh, I manifested a dog." You know? It's we're all on our own journeys, and I
yeah,
definitely see these pockets of love and awareness that everybody on their own journey and at their own time, whatever is perfect for them, they're all experiencing. And in tandem, we make this collective consciousness. And then there's people like you and I that are, leaning into our spiritual leadership gift and attempting to help other people. Not
yeah,
everybody's purpose is necessarily connected to, a spiritual leadership component.
right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
what a beautiful journey, right? For all of us that we do. It's all part of that. And
Yeah.
it's about to get really fun for the human consciousness. So it's going to be an amazing continued journey for sure. Right.
Yeah.
So
We have like a minute and a half left. I'm just curious, like in a sentence or two, what do you mean by it's going to get really fun?
uh, a lot of changes are
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
If you, it's out, the information is out there, the frequencies going through the age of Aquarians,
Mhm.
you can research that information has been around since the 50s.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were a lot of channels back then, but and they're all pointing to what's happening,
Yeah.
right? And all this new information that's coming out about extraterrestrials,
Yeah. Mhm.
frequency of the earth.
Yep.
We are tied to the earth
Yeah. Yeah.
from our incarnation here.
Yeah.
And when the earth is shifting,
Mhm.
it's housing and it's the foundation for our shifting
Yeah.
as a consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's just a big baseline, but there's going to be a lot of stuff that
Yeah.
we're going to have to work through, including all the stuff all the bad stuff that's going on nowadays. That's part of us going through our change,
Yeah.
to dealing with all that stuff. So
Whether it's war or weather or, a lot of different things like that.
dissension, all the arguing that's going on, and all that stuff.
Yes.
I mean, we have to go through that
Yeah.
in order to elevate and realize that we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It's just that's a macrocosm of what's going on. Microcosm within ourselves, we do that every time we have an emotion response.
Yeah.
We have to go through it,
Yeah.
and then to realize to go past it, and to let it go and realize the freedom that happens from that. It's the same way I see it. So
Yeah. That's so beautiful. If you can believe it, 90 minutes has already gone by.
I know.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to say thank you to everybody who joined us for the live. Me, thank you so much for sharing your energy. I called you literally like the middle of this week and I was like, hey, what are you doing Sunday? Um,
I was like, yes, let's go. Let's do it. It's
let's
fun.
do it. Again, me's contact information is going to be below. Just, I'll just say this. Sometimes when you see somebody on a TV screen or, that you don't want to burden them. Like that used to be kind of a feeling I felt. If you have a tie or connection to me, follow that and see where it goes. And maybe nothing comes out of it, but at a minimum, you honored yourself. And so you start to, reinforce that connection with your intuition or trust. Um, oh, Erica. Hello, Erica. She said, so fun. Thanks for sharing your light, Tiffany and me. Cool.
Yeah. I just want to say blessings to everybody on their journey in 2024.
Yeah.
And thank you, Tiffany, for a continued connection. It's beautiful. Thank you for the conversation. It was a good reflection for me to have you share what you did, and thank you for that, and your vulnerability. So blessings to everybody. Thank you.
I received that. Thank you so much. And I definitely will be in touch. So,
Okay. All
all
right.
right.
Blessings.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.